Welcome to a session ABAP Strategy. My name is Boris Gebhardt, Chief Product Owner of the ABAP Platform. So let's look at the agenda. I will first introduce the ABAP Platform, so what it is about, what is the importance of the ABAP Platform in the SAP environment, what are the main stakeholders, what are the main investment areas which we have, and what is the release strategy of the ABAP Platform. And since we are in the middle of a big transformation from Business Suite to S/4HANA, we will then focus on the main new topics for ABAP developers. So what are the topics you have to learn as an ABAP developer to be up to date? And this will lead us to the SAP Cloud Platform ABAP environment, or the code name Steampunk, which enables you to build and run ABAP applications on SAP Cloud Platform ready for the cloud. And with that, let's directly jump into the first chapter with this introduction. I'm quite sure since TechEd is somehow special this year, we have now an online event with new attendees. Perhaps not everybody is totally familiar with the ABAP Platform, therefore some basics about that. So the ABAP Platform is the foundation of the big SAP applications. You all know Business Suite, S/4HANA, it is out there for decades. And it runs really the business of the biggest companies of the world. And for that, the ABAP Platform provides a rock-solid, scalable application server to run really the mission-critical business processes of the companies. It scales perfectly for small and for big companies. And additionally, we provide with the ABAP Platform a development environment with ABAP, which is tailor-made really for business applications, not only for developing those, but also for maintenance, the complete life cycle, troubleshooting the applications. And on the right side, you see some numbers to see the impact of the ABAP Platform. So there are more than 100,000 installed productive SAP systems available running on ABAP. But not only SAP is building ABAP-based applications, we have our customers and partners extending SAP applications using ABAP. And an average SAP system has more than 10,000 ABAP-based custom applications sitting on top of their system as an average value. And if you count the ABAP developers which are out there in the world, we have more than 5 million registered ABAP developers. So there's no doubt the ABAP Platform is absolutely powerful, and we have seen the impact of the ABAP Platform and the history of the ABAP Platform. But what about the future? And as you can see here, we are in the middle of a big transformation, and the transformation we are in is the transformation from our SAP Business Suite running on NetWeaver as ABAP to SAP S/4HANA on-premise and in the cloud, again, running on the ABAP Platform. And additionally, we have the transformation to SAP Cloud Platform concerning all the extensions. And this big move, of course, impacts the ABAP Platform and especially the investment topics of the ABAP Platform a lot. Because as we are still the platform, the foundation for these big new products like SAP S/4HANA, we as the ABAP Platform have to ensure that, for example, ABAP developers can easily exploit HANA, which is underneath SAP S/4HANA, make it convenient to use all the benefits of SAP HANA in your ABAP code. The same is true for Fiori, for the new user experience which we have in SAP S/4HANA. So as we did it with Dynpro and with the classic ABAP programming model to make it convenient to build these transactions, reports, and so on, now we have to do the same for Fiori-based web applications. Make it effective to build enterprise-ready Fiori applications with ABAP. And last but not least, the shift to the cloud, which is, of course, the biggest move, because here we now have to more or less transform our scalable, robust platform for on-premise to the cloud, being scalable, being resilient, introducing automated updates, reducing the downtime, automate all the operation stuff, providing an extensibility framework which is suitable for the cloud. All that must be integrated in the ABAP Platform, and we are already on a way to achieve all these goals. So this change or this transformation, of course, had an effect on our ABAP platform release strategy as well. You know this slide from last year's. I just want to ensure that you are all aware of that. So on the left side, you see our SAP Business Suite, NetWeaver, and all these products which we have running on SAP NetWeaver. We shipped our last NetWeaver, our application server version with version 7.52, and our new ABAP platform versions are no longer shipped into this world. So of course, we do the complete support, the complete maintenance for all these customers, the Business Suite, the NetWeaver. There's no change, but we don't ship new ABAP platform releases in that world. That happens on the right side. So the innovation happens on the right side, on the S/4HANA world. Here, the most important information for you is that the ABAP platform uses one code line, one development code line to develop all new features. For example, our new RESTful ABAP programming model for Fiori application, new ABAP features, and so on. And all these features get to our stakeholders from one code line, to S/4HANA on-premise, to S/4HANA Cloud, and to our ABAP environment in SAP Cloud Platform. Just the timing is different. Quarterly shipments in the cloud to Steampunk, to S/4HANA Cloud, and yearly shipments to on-premise. But the features go to all stakeholders. That's really important. Additionally, you see we changed the naming. So in the Business Suite world, we had SAP NetWeaver application server for ABAP. On the right side, we now use the wording ABAP Platform, and then the release version, we use the same as our S/4HANA colleagues. So the delivery date is part of the version naming. As an example, ABAP Platform 2011 or ABAP Platform 2102. All this, of course, this big transformation has an impact on the ABAP developers. And therefore, since that's the audience for us, the ABAP developers, I want to focus on the topics which are really important so that your knowledge keeps up to date. And from my point of view, the biggest change is the shift from on-premise to the cloud. And especially how you extend SAP application will change from on-premise to cloud. In on-premise, that's the left side here, we had more or less an extension model which was completely freestyle, meaning you could build ABAP Z code, custom code on the SAP business application, and there were no restrictions. You could use whatever SAP object you want. You could include SAP includes, you could copy SAP code, you could even change SAP code. So this was extremely powerful and flexible, and is flexible. But of course, this complete freedom, this complete more or less interference between SAP code and the extensions has one big disadvantage, and that comes up as soon as you update the SAP software or you do an upgrade, because then all these dependencies between your changes and the SAP code make it really cumbersome to do an SAP update, tedious, costly, and you need a lot of testing to get the SAP software updated. That's the big disadvantage of this flexibility. And it's clear in the cloud, we can't do extensions like that. In the cloud, for example, S/4HANA Cloud, like you see it on the right side, SAP does automated updates of the SAP software for all systems, for example, during one weekend. There is no special customer-specific upgrade project anymore. It's an automated update. All the extensions must work afterwards. And you can only achieve that if you bring in some restriction and get over to a more regulated extension process in the cloud. And the regulations are, first of all, no more modifications of SAP code. That's clear. And second, and that's the most important part, a very strict and clear public interface of SAP objects which you are allowed to use in your extension. And only those objects, only those classes, CDS views or whatsoever can be used in your extension. When you try to use any other stuff, then you see a syntax error. So that is something which you have to keep in mind. No longer I can use everything which is available, but I have to restrict myself to the public interface of objects delivered by SAP. And the trick is then this interface will be kept stable. And since you do not use anything else, then SAP can update all the other objects because you do not directly depend on those. And that allows these automated cloud updates. Additionally, today in S/4HANA Cloud, there is no classic custom ABAP development happening directly on S/4HANA Cloud, but we provide in-app extensibility, key user tooling. Here you see a screenshot for that. So that is more the possibility to do tiny extensions to Fiori applications of SAP, add a column, implement an extension, a body. So tiny extensions, not a real development project. It's more a tiny extension to your existing application. If you want to do a bigger extension, real development projects, this shall be done side by side on SAP Cloud Platform. So really physically separated to your business stack. You have SAP Cloud Platform, and here now you do your development project using ABAP, Java, or Node, and then you get the data or call APIs from the dedicated business system, be it on premise or in the cloud. So to summarize this, we have the possibility in the cloud to have in-app extensions which are running on the stack of your business application like S/4HANA Cloud. For that, we have today key user extensibility, a strict interface to SAP is used. The big applications, the big extensions are running on SAP Cloud Platform, and they use remote APIs to communicate with the application. But both are totally separated from the SAP code, your extensions. Okay, after seeing how extensibility works in the cloud compared to on-premise, now what are the main topics you as an ABAP developer should invest concerning your training? And since I showed this slide already, I think 2 years, I'm quite optimistic that these topics are stable. So it's really a must to invest in learning in these topics. The first one is the UI more or less, or the programming model. There's no doubt we have a shift from Dynamo-based applications to Fiori-based applications in S/4HANA. And we, as the ABAP platform, provide the RESTful ABAP programming model to ease the construction and the development of these applications. Second is HANA. If you run your S/4HANA and you build extensions, and of course it's a must that you as an ABAP developer who extend S/4HANA use the capabilities of HANA. For that, we extended our SQL massively in ABAP. We have the core data services. We have possibilities for code push down. So it's really essential that you learn that and do not everything in the application server with internal tables and so on. Efficient development. These are all the topics around test-driven development, unit testing, test coverage, using the ABAP test cockpit for static checks, especially in the cloud, the quality level which you need, and especially if you go for CI/CD, must get better and better. And this can be only achieved with tests. And I think in the ABAP, we invested heavily to provide the tools and means for that, including testable frameworks and so on, to make it really possible to do this in the ABAP world. And I think in other environments like Java, that's more or less common sense, and therefore it's essential that we do the same in ABAP as well. And cloud, last but not least, we covered that already. Get familiar with the new possibilities to extend cloud solutions with SAP Cloud Platform and in-app extensibility to realize a lifecycle stable extension approach. Fine. So let's do a little deep dive in the programming model area to build Fiori applications. We have really some kind of evolution in this area. Some years ago, we started at SAP with the first Fiori applications. These were really more iPhone-based or mobile phone-based applications, really small, tiny, and easy. Just, for example, approve a vacation request, an order, something like that. So one button, that's it. And for these tiny applications, we had no dedicated programming model, but it was more a freestyle development of these applications. This changed massively when Fiori and the Fiori-based application were more or less mainstream in S4HANA. So with S4HANA, Fiori was on the center stage, and all the developers at SAP working in the S4HANA area had to develop these applications. And of course, if so many developers are working on a product, then you need a programming model, you need some standardized ways how to develop these applications. You have to cover the product standards in a standardized way. You need extensibility. And that's why we introduced the ABAP programming model for SAP Fiori with the components, core data services, CDS-based BOP, and so on. And then we had some more learning, to be honest, after seeing how all the ABAP developers internally at SAP or on customer side built their Fiori application. We realized there's some room for improvement concerning efficiency of development and troubleshooting. And we always try to be at least as good as the Dynpro world. So it should be as effective to build a Fiori application as we know it from the Dynpro world. In order to achieve that, we more or less invented our RESTful ABAP programming model. And the main idea here is do more or less the same we did decades before in the Dynpro. So integrate the central elements of our programming model really in the ABAP language to ensure that we have all the static checking, to ensure that during troubleshooting, an ABAP developer does not have to debug some framework code, but this is hidden somewhere in the kernel. So that was really the main driver for the RESTful ABAP programming model to reach a next level of efficiency. And since there was already a lot of stuff out concerning Fiori apps using the ABAP programming model for SAP Fiori, and additionally, it takes time to build web, we invest in parallel that we have a clear bridge from the ABAP programming model for SAP Fiori to the web programming model for customers, and that's necessary for SAP internally as well, so that you can today use the predecessor programming model and you have safe invests, and then we help you to transform this step by step in the web world. Fine. Here you see a little picture showing the main elements of an ABAP RESTful programming model application. You see layering and clear separation of concern is key here. The lowest level data modeling and behavior, we have queries, for example, to select sales orders. Then you add behavior, you add actions and events to build a sales order business objects. These are reusables. And then perhaps you have an application which needs only a section of your sales order business objects. You don't need a create action, but only want to display stuff, for example. Then you use projections. And then this business object projection layer then is used in your service definition in order to define which scope you want to expose. And finally, you do the binding to specify which protocol version, is it OData v2 or v4 shall be used. And this service can then be used in the Web IDE, the Business Application Studio, or to build a Web IDE. So you see each level can be reused. And if there's a change in the protocol, you don't have to do to change everything, but only the service binding, so that we have clear dependencies and clear separation of concern. This leads us to SAP Cloud Platform ABAP environment, where the RESTful ABAP programming model is the programming model of choice and the only programming model available. So first of all, SAP Cloud Platform itself, that's the extension platform for SAP applications on-premise or in the cloud. You use the SAP Cloud Platform as an integration suite to integrate the on-premise cloud, SAP and non-SAP applications. You leverage all the services which are integrated in SAP Cloud Platform to have a rich environment for your extensions. And additionally, we have different environments in our SAP Cloud Platform, ABAP, Java, and Node, so that you can pick the environment which suits best to your extension. Perhaps a short motivation why we introduced the ABAP environment into SAP Cloud Platform. I think it's easy. We have a really big customer base. You have seen that in the first slides, which built a lot of custom ABAP code. Second, we have proven with the ABAP platform that we have an enterprise-ready way to build business applications with ABAP, and why not reuse this asset? And last but not least, we're in the middle of a big transition from on-premise to cloud. And of course, our on-premise customers who build a lot of ABAP custom code and who have a lot of ABAP developers will ask, okay, what shall I now do with this knowledge and with these extensions when I transform to the cloud, for example, to S/4HANA Cloud? And therefore, it's obvious if you put these three things together that providing an ABAP environment in SAP Cloud Platform, which allows to develop and reuse ABAP in the cloud, is an obvious choice. What is this ABAP environment in SAP Cloud Platform? So perhaps you know the NetWeaver application server ABAP with the layers, kernel, the basis layer, the ABAP layer, and so on. Steampunk, so this ABAP environment in SAP Cloud Platform is quite similar to that if you just check the layers, but it's integrated in SAP Cloud Platform, so into the cloud cockpit, into the user and identity management, in the provisioning and commandization process. You are next to the SAP Cloud Platform services like artificial intelligence and so on. And additionally, we at SAP operate this ABAP environment in SAP Cloud Platform. So we do the updates. We are responsible to operate it. You just use the ABAP environment in SAP Cloud Platform for your extensions. Additionally, since we are operating it, it's clear that there must be some restrictions. First restriction is that only web access is allowed, so no SAP GUI access to run your applications. For development, you use our ABAP development tools in Eclipse to build your ABAP applications on top. Additionally, we restricted the ABAP language. Not all statements are allowed. So accessing, for example, the file system with open data set is not possible. We're not allowed to directly access the operating system level and so on. Additionally, since we do the updates, we publish a public interface of our basis objects of our ABAP environment or ABAP platform objects, which you are allowed to use. If you try to call any other function module class in your extension on Steampunk, then you will see a syntax error. So really, as explained, we are in the cloud, clear separation of extension and SAP code, only the public interface can be used. Additionally, keep in mind you are sitting side by side. That means if you build your extension and you want to extend your business suite system, your S/4HANA system or whatever system, you have to call a remote API to, for example, retrieve the materials, the business partner, and so on from your application. We are out now for 2 years, and therefore we gained some experience which kind of use cases are dominant in our customer base. And we found 3 main scenarios why customers choose our ABAP environment in SAP Cloud Platform for their extension. The first scenario is the Cloud ERP scenario. That means that's a customer who bought S/4HANA Cloud and now wants to build an extension. He can use a key user extension sitting on top of S/4HANA Cloud for these tiny extensions, or for bigger development projects, he uses SAP Cloud Platform. And if it's an ABAP-minded customer, then he will choose Steampunk. Second is the innovation platform. These are customers who are still on the business suite, for example, using any database. And for dedicated extensions, they need cutting edge features from ABAP, they need HANA, for example, or they need special SAP Cloud Platform services. And for these extensions, they then use SAP Cloud Platform ABAP environment, because then, for example, they can build a web-based Fiori application directly on SAP HANA using the capabilities of HANA and using some SAP Cloud Platform services. And they don't have to care about the operation of all these new components because that's handled by SAP. And the third scenario, which is from my perspective, the most prominent scenario, which we see currently, is the hub-like usage. So perhaps you know the NetWeaver standalone use case on premise, where you have in your on-premise landscape a NetWeaver standalone, and you have some partner solutions or your own custom code extensions or SAP solutions, which work like a hub, meaning they integrate with many other on-premise systems. And the same can, of course, be done in the cloud with Steampunk, meaning you have in the cloud your ABAP environment and your partner solution or your extension, which now integrates again with on-premise solutions, but additionally with cloud services, with cloud applications. And of course, that's then very powerful because the complete operation of the Steampunk system is done by SAP, and you can integrate nicely with on-premise and cloud solutions. So let's summarize a little bit what we learned about extensions. We have seen that's the left side on premise. We have, for example, our SAP Business Suite. And on the right side, we have, for example, an SAP NetWeaver standalone, which works as a hub scenario, for example, calling remote APIs. The biggest information, of course, is that on premise, you have freestyle ABAP custom coding without any restrictions. You can use whatever SAP object you want. You can modify the SAP objects, so there are no restrictions. Makes it very powerful, but makes it hard to upgrade the system. We learned, that's the right side of the picture, in the cloud, we have a big change concerning extensibility. As an example, I use S/4HANA Cloud. We have S/4HANA Cloud sitting on the ABAP platform. The biggest difference, of course, in the cloud is that now a public interface must be always used when you want to extend SAP software. As you can see on the right side, the picture looks quite similar to the left. We have S/4HANA Cloud, and side by side, we have now not a SAP NetWeaver, but an SAP Cloud Platform. In the ABAP environment, this is Steampunk. On Steampunk, using the public interface, we have, for example, an extension, and then remote APIs are called. Directly on S/4HANA Cloud, there is no ABAP development possible. We have only the possibility of key user extension. Okay, that means you can do tiny extension. You have perhaps the possibility to add a column, to add a screen, but no real custom development. So looking at the picture, as explained, it looks really good. It looks quite systematic and quite equal, but there is one gap. And the gap is that there's no development possible directly on S/4HANA Cloud. Big development projects must happen side by side on Steampunk. And that leads me now to the promised lab review, a vision or an idea which we currently evaluate. And that's the following. The idea is we have with Steampunk now a cloud-ready ABAP development model with the restricted ABAP language, with the public interface, with the Eclipse-based IDE, the web access, and so on and so on. Additionally, we have one code line between Steampunk and our S/4HANA Cloud and even S/4HANA on-premise. And now it's somewhat obvious, why not reusing our cloud-ready ABAP development model of Steampunk in S/4HANA Cloud? So why not embed Steampunk in S/4HANA Cloud? The result is visible on the right side. That means this would allow that you can do custom ABAP development directly on S/4HANA Cloud with a programming model identical to Steampunk. So you use your Eclipse IDE, build your custom code. You can only use the public interface of the basis layers as in Steampunk. And additionally, SAP S/4HANA Cloud provides a public interface as well for finance, procure, produce, and so on. And only those classes, CDS views, web facades can be used then in the extension. And this idea, of course, would make it possible to you as a customer to do the tightly coupled extensions with custom code directly on SAP S/4HANA Cloud, and the loosely coupled big applications side by side on Steampunk, or use Java or Node directly, which is available in SAP Cloud Platform as well. And the combination of both these developments on stack using Embedded Steampunk plus the side-by-side extensibility will then provide a very rich extensibility model, which is hopefully then comparable what you can do on premise. But of course, with the restrictions which you need in the cloud, like public interface and no modifications. With that, I go over to the summary and let's put it together. So we have seen the ABAP application server is the proven platform for thousands of ERP systems. No change to that. But not only history, it's about the future as well. The ABAP platform is the foundation of the new big flagship products of SAP, like S/4HANA. And we heavily invest into the Fiori programming model with RESTful ABAP programming model, into the cloud enabling, in the exploit HANA storyline to provide the same level of convenience to the ABAP developers in the new world as they are used to from the business suite times. With SAP Cloud Platform ABAP environment, we provide in the cloud an environment which allows you to build ABAP applications and to run ABAP applications and extensions. And the lab review, you have seen that with this idea of embedded steampunk, we now can evaluate if we can reuse our cloud-enabled ABAP development model, not only in Steampunk, but in S/4HANA Cloud. And of course, the next step would be somewhat obvious. Why not reusing then, since we share our code line with S/4HANA on-premise as well, why not share this then in on-premise as well, to at least recommend this as a programming model, which would help on-premise customers as well. But as said, a lab review, a vision, an idea, but that's something which we could discuss at the moment. So here, after seeing the summary, some more information today. That's mainly an overview about the topics. If you want to dig deeper, then I can really recommend that you visit sessions about the ABAP RESTful, RESTful ABAP application programming model, go into the details of our SAP Cloud Platform ABAP environment with a long demo, and all the other topics. So there's really a lot of stuff available to dig deeper into the topics, or you use our portal and our learning experience on the web. And with that, I thank you very much for attending the session and wish you a nice day. Thank you very much.
Woo!